As we are out to prove the non-existence of the sort of God that we are worshipping, it's unlikely that I will fall asleep. We were talking on the whole issue of existence of evil and its compatibility with the existence of the sort of God that we worship, or the justification for the existence of a good God and the existence or simultaneous existence of evil. And to make it worse, we are not talking about any form of evil. We are talking about evil that apparently serves no purpose. And the not so famous term for that is theodicy, God justification. Now imagine, if we had awoken in this world and we had no notion of God at all. First and foremost, it's a highly hypothetical situation which doesn't exist because all of us woke up in the cradle of a civilization. But we had no notion of God, and then we saw all forms of things happening in this world. We would surely conclude that the world is evolving. Human beings are becoming actualized, for whenever we find a difficulty, it opens another facet of our personality and we realize our humanity to a greater level. We might immediately conclude that actually the world in the way that it stands is purposeful. It's serving a purpose. We are growing. And on occasions, if we were to find intense instances of suffering and evil, we would be likely to conclude that, okay, it is one of those glitches within the whole system. It's not so that everything is purposeful, but overall, by and large, it is purposeful and it is good. The case would be simple. The case would not be a problem. There would not be a problem in our minds. In fact, an atheist sees the world in this way. They don't see a problem. They say, yes, the world is evolving, and we do admit that there are instances of evils that apparently serve no purpose, that are needless. But hey, that is the way the world is. It's allowed to make certain flaws. That's the way we all are. But then, on the other hand, we have the believer. Now, the believer situation is this, that no, everything has to make sense even if I don't understand. But I have this belief that God has created it all and has created it for a purpose. And therefore, there is nothing which is meaningless. That's the first thing the theist states, and the orthodox believer. And the second thing they state is, and the purpose is one of care, one of love, one in which God is by my side. That is at one level. At another level, the believer takes great solace and comfort through the belief in God and prayer at points of difficulties. They find actually that praying to God during suffering allows them to better cope with those moments of intense suffering, allows them to grow through that situation by tapping into God. Whereas for an atheist, it is not as meaningful. An atheist would say, yes, I witness instances of suffering of myself and others. Through that, I am prompted to remove the sufferings of others and put checks in place where I don't suffer again. But they don't find that personal, beautiful connection and comfort that a theist finds during moments of suffering. And if we can draw again the example from Imam Hussein, we are finding that Imam Hussein is going through intense suffering. Intense suffering. He could have been killed immediately, but his agony was prolonged. But in that prolonged agony, we are seeing the evolution of a soul through suffering. And we are finding, in some spiritual way, his being is increasing through that personal connection with God. Whereas, had it been anybody other than Hussein ibn Ali, who did not subscribe to a God, who did not pray, or whatever else, they may not have been at that serene state in which Imam Hussein is described to have been prior to the moment of his own death or beheading. So the believer has no problem believing in God. The atheist has no problem in suffering and pain, inadequacies of the world, evils as described in the first session. The problem comes when the atheist turns to the theist. That's when the problem is coming. And the atheist is saying to the theist, well, look, I'm perfectly fine with the world in which I am. But according to your standards, you are in a delusional state. You are not living in the real world. Because according to you, there is a God who is all-caring, all-powerful, omnipotent, all-knowing, omniscient, and is a God that is present at every instance and is capable of intervention, changing the situation, and according to your own claim, he can do anything, which means that he can allow for the good to flow without that suffering to exist. Isn't that the claim of a theist? That we believe in a God that is so supremely great and so caring that he can bring about the same results without those actions. So the atheist is saying to the theist, well, this is your God. And obviously, your God is not doing what you claim him to be doing. So there's a problem. Now, the believer in God's immediate response is to justify themselves. Yes? Now here, I'm not saying that the justification is wrong. It serves a beautiful purpose, allows them to lead good lives, gives them meaning. However, if a person were to be true to their humanity, then maybe they may want to entertain this problem at a real level. For most part, we have already decided what we are, and nothing can shift us from our positions, for most part. Even when we engage in interfaith dialogues or intrafaith dialogues, these dialogues are only there to create common grounds based on our individual belief systems. These dialogues are not there to reciprocate and learn from each other. So there is already a presumption that I am right, and on the basis of that right, if we concur, we will find a common ground to work on. We have already assumed a very fixed position. Now this is the attitude with which we go into this response and this question. But maybe sometimes it would be better to take it head on. And there is nothing wrong in doing so. For if we were to take it on properly, and if it were to transpire that our position is accurate, it would be verified for us. It would become more meaningful. If we find out we were wrong, then one of two possible things may come about. We might find that the world in which we were existing was a delusional world. Yet it's a good world because it gives meaning and some form of purpose. We might find that is the response. Or we might find ourselves on the path of discovery of the truth and a more glorious God, and instill greater purpose and greater meaning within our lives. The problem is made more acute by what me and you at our personal level assume of God and the way in which we relate to God. Because yes, I pray to God for several reasons. One is that it gives me direction. It gives me sense of belonging. It gives me completion from within. But humanity at large relates to God at a mundane level. And that is, God, I pray to you for you to then provide, for you to then ease my difficulties. This is the level at which prayers are understood by and large. Not that, oh Lord, I pray to you because I genuinely miss praying to you. My heart is yearning you. I am in love with you and I wish to spend intimate time with you. Through you, I am becoming a completed human being from within myself. But my prayer is, Lord, please make this work. My Lord, let there not befall any calamity upon my children. My Lord, keep my community thriving. My Lord, bring about peace in place of war, unity in place of disunity, friendship in place of enmity, wealth in place of poverty. These are the prayers that the world is concerned with by and large. It is here then that we ask ourselves, are these prayers being answered? And we believe in a God that intervenes. If nothing else, it will clarify to us as to what is happening. If nothing else, this line of inquiry. I say here, if I were to stop believing in God and stop praying to Him, with guarantee I will tell you, He will not snatch the air that I breathe. He will not stop sustaining me. So my prayer to Him for sustenance are actually useless in that sense. For me to ask Him to keep me healthy is basically useless because He will keep me healthy in any case. In fact, the opposite might be true. Pharaoh did not believe in God, contended against Him, and God gave him the whole kingdom. In fact, not believing in Him and not praying to Him in the way we pray yields more of what we desire rather than less. Think about it in that way. Now, the theist, before they offer solutions, and the solutions we went through a few of them, we will go into the optimal world solution. The solutions that they offer, the theist needs to open up and ask themselves, but do these solutions make sense? I will pose a fundamental problem that undermines every theodicy. Why create the world in the first place? It is so inconsistent, the theistic notion of God and the creation of the world. He is all-knowing and nothing can defy what He knows. Do we believe this as a start off? So He knows Yazid is going to kill Imam Hussein and the situation cannot be altered. He knows I am going to heaven or hell. Yes, and nothing can defy that. He is all capable. I ask a fundamental question, why have this world in the first place? Which is going beyond the atheist problem. That question is the central question that concerns us. But we chose to take on the problems that is posed by an atheist, namely the problem of evil. And not any evil, horrendous, pointless, gratuitous evil. Now that does pose a real problem. Genuinely it poses a real problem. Because on the one hand, you, the believer, believes in a God that can do anything he wants. He can yield the results that he wants without allowing such difficulties if he were to want. Why would he not want? You see, the problem is here. If we were to say that the good that God envisages cannot be arrived at save through this arduous process of intense suffering, then we will say, okay, we are going some way towards answering. But on top of that, we believe that God can assure the same results without that process. That makes the problem acute. Now here, we had a few responses, and I do want us to engage now meaningfully and talk about this before we go into the optimal world solution. If people were to say that why can't we have a world without suffering, then we will ask them, is your thinking accurate? You are asking the impossible. You want to be you, and you don't want to be you. You are a product of a world that operates in opposites. You are a product of good and not good, suffering and joy. How can you remain yourself and want the world to be otherwise? That then would not allow you to be yourself, and then there would be no question. The other one was that, well, if there was a blissful world, then how would we understand the blissful world? Why can't there be a world without any evil? We are saying, well, if there was a world without evil, how would you understand that world to be good in the first place? But we are responded to by saying, I'm not saying a world without evil. I'm saying a world without intense evil, which is needless. That 5-year-old child needn't have died in that brutal manner. God's ways are mysterious. God knows best what he is doing. Now the theist is responding in this way. We are saying to the theist, God's ways are mysterious, yet he is kind, isn't he? If he is kind, why could he not have given a little bit of an explanation as to what warrants such horrendous instances of evil? God wanted to make a moral human individual that becomes God-like, godly, altruistic, brave, sacrificing. Is it justified after 7 billion people to create one Madame Teresa, to bring about one Jesus, to bring about one Abraham, to bring about a few saints here and there? Is it justified in order to bring about a handful of people that billions of souls should suffer? One of the God justification is the afterlife, that we will go through sufferings and intense suffering in this world in order to find great joy in the afterlife that will more than compensate for the suffering in this world. There are two problems with this justification. One is, was tremendous and intense suffering needed? Two is, given the choice, I would much rather not have the afterlife at all. But the main problem is, was I even asked to come into this world and to face this life? I find the theistic position an odd one. The theist presumes that I am here now and there is no questioning God about why I am here, but I will make sense of why I am here. So the theistic world is a world that doesn't have a beginning, it starts somewhere in the middle. He hasn't put the puzzles together. Surely the theist's first question should be, well, why am I here? Was I even asked that should I come here? The afterlife yields those problems for me and it doesn't justify anything. First, this much evil, is it needed? Two, given the choice, I would have opted out of having an afterlife in the first place. Why did he create me in the first instance? If the response is, well, you weren't there, so how could he ask you? Then I will say, how can he be so careless and make me? I desire not to worship such a God. When picking on another one of your points in which you said free will, I would question free will altogether. Is there any such thing as free will? Yes, there is responsibility of the choice that we make at the instance, but is there anything as free will? If we look at our own personalities, we will see that we are compounded of all the conditioning that we have received. Our features are not up to us. We are the products of the genetic makeup of our parents. I can't remember choosing coming into this world at that particular time. I did not choose to be conditioned in the environment in which I was conditioned. I did not set the standard of beauty and ugliness. They vary as the sense of beauty and ugliness of the community varies. I did not choose to take birth into Islam and dislike the non-Muslim. I was placed in this position. Even my taste buds have been accustomed to foods that have been imposed upon me. So when I ask myself, who am I? First and foremost, I find that I am not, to a great extent. Secondly, when I ask myself, do I make any free choice? I find that no, all the factors come together, converge at a particular point, and then I make a choice, which is the most natural choice to be made given my own context and my background. So one thing is responsibility for choice and the other one is free will. So we need to distinguish between the two. I just want to because you asked this question, I just want to clarify it. The question of shirk and forgiveness, I don't feel it is as we have understood it. The shirk means that fixed identity of I, there's no other God than Allah apart from me. And forgiveness means the ability to let go and to evolve. Yes? Sin is the state of stagnation. So we'll leave it at that one. But one or two other people had certain contributions whilst we were, if they can just make them now before we go on to the next leg.